It's the cool of the day. The cool of the day. The cool of the day. Hey, family. It's your girl, Keish, your host, and I invite you back into the cool of the day, the space where we talk about Christ in real life, where we wear our story, walk in our purpose, and commit to being the light in someone else's darkness, all while staying crowned and authentic. This is season 4, and our theme is He's in the Fire with Us. A reminder that God does not wait for us on the other side of the struggle, but walks with us through it. Today's conversation sits right at the intersection of faith, emotional healing, creativity, and growth. We're talking about youth representation, y'all, mental health, emotional awareness, and what it means to sit in discomfort long enough for transformation to happen. And I'm honored to welcome our special guest, Dorian Withrow Jr., a speaker, author, and mental health counselor whose work challenges us to see emotions not as weaknesses, but as pathways to healing. Through his creative work and storytelling, Dorian models what it looks like to acknowledge emotions, normalize mental health conversations, and invite faith into the process without rushing the outcome. Today, we're exploring how creativity shapes identity, how early emotional habits impact adulthood, why therapy and faith can walk hand in hand, and how Jesus truly meets us in the fire, not to pull us out too fast, but to stay with us while we grow. So let's get into the conversation. Dorian, thank you for coming on the cool of the day. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm feeling awesome.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so I know I gave like a introduction about you, but can you give us a little bit more about who you are and what brought you on to the podcast?
I'm a cool, chill guy. You know, I like to eat some good soul food, martial arts, and I like what I do in terms of work. So I spend a lot of my time these days just kind of like looking up things that I can use to help folks in the counseling space and doing some of my own like personal grind things outside of that to get some animation stuff going. But outside of that, it's kind of like my day-to-day life at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, so the animation stuff, I was looking at that on Facebook and I was like, this is dope. Like I was like, this is dope, really, really dope. Like it reminded me of Dragon Tales when I was
Oh
a
yeah,
little
yeah.
girl. Do you remember Dragon Tales? I don't know.
I remember bits and pieces of it. I don't remember a
Yeah.
lot of cartoons. Like it was a lot of Scooby Doo, Flipstones, Pink Panther. I did enjoy those, Justice League, stuff like that. But
Oh yeah, it was more of the boy
yeah,
stuff, like the boy
I was a
stuff.
Cartoon Network kid. That's what I was.
I was like PPS and um what was the other one? Oh my God, I don't even remember. But it's been so long ago. I haven't watched cartoons in like years. Like I remember watching like Penny Proud and that was my show, Penny Proud. And SpongeBob was like another good one.
Yeah,
But SpongeBob now is a lot different than the SpongeBob that we had then. I
yeah.
don't
I
know.
think they got different writers in there.
Yeah, it's a little bit
Yeah,
more hype. It's like it makes me feel like I'm about to have like an anxiety attack or something with this SpongeBob nowadays. Um, but Creativity King, like, it was created to give youth authentic representation while modeling emotional awareness. So like why was that important? Like why was that important to you to create a youth cartoon? Like that's dope. I don't think I know anyone that has done that, or I don't think, no, no, like you're the first that I've known.
Oh, absolutely. It's my desire to reach another audience, a new audience. Um, my whole thing with even with the writing of the books, it's bringing a lot of the concept I learned in, my master's program, my bachelor's program, and I try to bring those down and simplify them to their core with life examples. And my ambition is to have people, you know, learn and connect to things that they wouldn't ordinarily have access to because of financial circumstances, location, upbringing, whatever have. So with the animation pursuit is I'm just taking the books, how do I adjust those and make them into something that can be relatable for not necessarily directed towards children, like, talking like 4 to 9, but more for like the preteens, teenagers. And that's where I'm kind of like leaning towards in the lane I'm approaching now. But now it's about taking the less serious aspect of it, not keeping it there, but making it also entertaining and attractive to the eye. And so that's what I'm working on right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Like, I mean, I know that it was for like, the teenagers, but I just think that's awesome because like a lot of teenagers now they're on social media, they're,
Yep.
like what's the big one? Not Minecraft. What is it called? Because my daughter always wants to get on there all the time.
Was it Roblox?
Roblox.
Roblox, yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, Roblox. I'm like, I gotta compete with Roblox. The devil's a liar. I'm not competing with it. So like their mind is like fixated on television or like or their phones or it's not so
Mhm.
much of like a social interaction like with each other. It's more so through the phone,
Yeah.
and I think with the creativity king, like it kind of fishes them in like what is this, like it will reel them in um into a new like idea of thinking, or it'll reel them in, like you said, um, to relate for them to relate to it, like for instance, I was talking about Penny Proud, right? I related to that show.
Mhm.
Like I was like, my family's crazy, just like this, but it always taught you like these life lessons at the end of the show,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, this is familiar, like this is amazing. And when I was growing up, that's what I was doing. Like I would watch certain shows that was funny, and it was interesting, but ultimately it taught me something.
Yeah.
Every show taught me something, and that's a great what you're doing is that's awesome. To teach these kids something rather than like, them learning from, nonsense or like and not learning at all. Truthfully, like with all these crazy things on TV and on their tablets and stuff, phones and stuff. But I think this is awesome. This is awesome. And I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be so good. So good. Like even my younger girl, she's 7. I mean, she can watch that. They will watch it like because it's animated. It's like all these theatricals and stuff. Like
Yes.
they would watch it. It'll catch their attention. Um, so, what do you hope the youth learn simply by seeing emotions acknowledged and worked through on screen?
Well, one thing, even as I look through the scripts right now, and I'm trying to make like a short to portray a better understand, like to convey the series a bit better. Um, I was like, there's one scene where, and I took this from my own life, but so there's a character named Jessica. She's in the trailer, and she's working with um, an older woman, helping her rake some leaves. And so this is where it's like, you know, help the elders, do the work, but also not to give away too much, but when you have when you do things, it's better to have people do it with you. It's better to have help. So when she's trying to do it alone, this older woman is coming to help her, and she's kind of rejecting it. Um, we show that not only that you know the youth and elders can coexist in certain spaces to help each other, while also teaching that you don't have to do it alone. Um, Especially when you're exhausted, you're carrying a load, and I hope that'll be portrayed in the short. So I'm cooking that up. And then there are other things like where there's daily life stuff, things that come up in our lives, just that pervade and cause us some troubles, like materialism. There's a whole episode. The whole episode is dedicated on that. And with the materialism episode, it's like, I think so Jessica's kind of going through and I got this and I got that, and and other characters are interacting with her, either educating her in a different way, showing her a different approach, while she may be rejecting it. And, you know, so we make a bit of a, conflict in the episode too, where yeah, there are two different ideologies kind of competing, and sometimes there are cases where it's just like, no, this is real. Just also, thinking about how the passing of a grandparent,
Mhm.
and how she's navigating concerns with that, philosophical conversations he's having with her mom, stuff like that. So I really wanted to capture what daily life is for a lot of us, while
Mhm.
also making it educational and at the same time having comedic value interwoven for the characters in those moments. And yeah, so I hope I do best to have that happen.
It's gonna happen. Hey, I was thinking I love to like write stuff down as people are talking
Yeah.
because I can't remember everything that ideas that pop up in my head. But I was thinking like adults are kids, we're big children,
Yeah.
just grown up, looking older. But we're kids. Like that's why God calls us, he calls us his children because we're always gonna be learning. Like we're always
Mhm.
are gonna be, these big children, and I mean I claim I have a child's heart. Like, I claim that. But you're not only talking to the youth, like, but you're talking to the child that's in adults as well. Because I just pictured myself sitting down one day with my kids because they're always watching like cartoons and stuff. And I literally like I'll be working like doing work and around the house and things like that, and then I'll have a moment to just sit down and relax.
Yeah.
And when I sit down, I'm like looking and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm literally being taught something looking at a child's, like cartoon.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, I thought that's it's so amazing, if a lot of people just, just take that time to like sit, sit and focus. We'll learn a lot from the people around us, even the things that we watch. You'll learn a lot from observing and just focusing. Um, so when I was younger, and I would cry out to my mom sometimes, because of the things that she would say, like let's say, you know, she said something that hurt my feelings,
Yeah.
and so I would go to her and be like, Mom, like, I'm crying and I'm like, I don't know how to like tell her, but I just, you know, like ruffle up the confidence to say,
Hmm.
Mom, what you said hurt me, and she would tell me, that didn't hurt you, like, like go to your room or, like that, you don't
Yeah.
have, like, and I'm like, that hurt my feelings, like, you don't have any feelings, and so for a long time I stuck with that. I stayed with that. I was like, I don't have feelings. So when I got older, like whenever, certain things would come up, temptations would rise, I would know that it wasn't right, but I wouldn't have a feeling behind it. It would be numb.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't care. It would be like I would be a numbed feeling. So like for the youth who maybe are listening, or maybe for the parents who are listening, um, like how would you speak, or what would you say to a youth who's like who you can tell that they're numbing their feelings, or like they don't even, you know, I don't know how I want to say it, but like they're just like, I don't care about that. Like I'm not, mm-mm. I
Um,
don't know, like,
I work with a few children. I
hmm
work with a few children. The That is pretty common because we come to a certain age and we have these emotions, these things going on inside of us. And how, for a lot of us, it was handled was go to your room. It was,
prison. It was
you
prison
might
in
have
there.
got a spanking, you might have were told to do some chores, told you'll be all right, pass it off. So when we get to a certain age and we haven't had the experience to express our insides, then we become a little guarded. We become a little uh, withdrawn sometimes too. I mean, even with parents, it's not always that case either. I don't blame them per se, but sometimes it's like, okay, he or she's starting to act out now, and I need you to just be this person to talk to them. So with children, what I try to do, for one, I like to do skill building stuff, but I think that giving them tools to emotion regulate while also, depending on their age, weave in emotion integration, where emotion regulate is this process we do to kind of get ourselves back to zero when we're at 10 for anger.
Mm-hmm.
But integration is taking a step further to learn why we got to that point. In what ways did the environment, or our thinking, our behaviors lead us to get to certain emotional spaces? And then from there, it's like, okay, what's the answer? How do we adjust in that whole chain of events? How do we adjust the processes, the triggers? How do we respond to the triggers, and so on and so forth, to not, you know, to have a better ground of why we get to where we get to, and to prevent that from happening? Or because there are certain situations we can't run from, and so we have to equip ourselves mentally with what can guard us before we even get to that point. Um, or if we get to that point and it's harder because of previous traumas, we can, do things to emotion regulate. But we wouldn't kind of get to the emotion regulate part and what I'm talking about now, because, and especially for trauma people, is if, they can't even recognize it or see how they even got to it, and so on. And
Yes.
so that's where the integration part is. So it's a bit of a dual thing for me. Have So the practical things, I don't like to talk around it and be like, here's what you got to do some stuff. So for me, it's write down their emotions, have them understand what they are, and then kind of working with them to understand where, like, what is the situation? At what point were they angry? Um, what kind of, you know, temperament were they beforehand? What was their day like prior? Sort of like helping them build a picture as best you can. Depends on their age too. But yeah, and then if they're older and their processes are a bit more refined, then you can get in a little more of like, why exactly was it that this caused you to feel this? What was the trigger? And then what was kind of like, why exactly is that trigger that got you? And we could build a better picture of, what exactly their world is, and then we can kind of target specific things that they need. I will say impulsivity is a bit harder because it's like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there we kind of like employ mindfulness, concentration exercises, breathing exercises, um, different meditations, because those kind of, I hope I'm not talking too much, but
Mm-mm.
those help children kind of slow down. They're able to process. and they're able to kind of just like, be able to sit still, feel what's going on inside, control their thoughts, or gain better control of their thoughts, because the goal there is like skill building with impulsivity. Um, and then eventually the hope is that you would get closer towards, okay, this is why, but you weren't able to communicate that before. But with some skill building, you can kind of like get a better ground at pinpointing certain things with them. That's how I see it at the moment. But yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's probably why a lot of kids be acting out, because they're like, I don't know how to express my emotions.
Hmm.
I don't know how to express it. Hey everyone, it's your girl Keish. I just wanted to take a moment and introduce you to Arabelle, aka Ari. She's not just a life insurance agent, she's someone who personally took care of me and my family. I trust her completely. She specializes in protecting families, whether it's burial costs, future planning, or just peace of mind. She's also a budget expert. If you want to learn more, text free quote to 646 954 8173 or visit her Instagram page and DM her at Coach Boss Babe. She'll be more than happy to help you just like she helped me. And we were talking about the writing. The writing helped me a lot. Like
Yeah.
I didn't even know that writing was doing that for me. I would like, just write about, my day, or I write about how I'm feeling in that moment. I write letters to God, like I'm like, dear God, like I'm having it right now. Or then I'll write letters to myself, like literally, I was at work and I was writing a letter to myself, to my future self. And I
Hmm.
was like talking positive to my future self because I know that one day again, I was gonna back at that note. And I was talking to, I work at a Baptist church. And this is not the church that I go to, but it's the church that I work at. And so the pastor there, he was walking by and he said, "What you doing?" I said, "I'm writing a letter to myself."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he said, "Okay." I was like, "Yeah, writing a letter to my future self, and to talk about yourself, like, positively, like that was not something, I was used to doing. So, like, I started to write about me, like, girl, you're great, because a lot of people would tell me, like, hey, Keish, hey, my Keisha, or, call me Keisha, um, you're doing great, like, you're a great mom, you're great. And then I'm like, I know, but like, sometimes I don't be feeling like I'm, like great, like
Yeah.
sometimes I don't, um, and like going back to the the creativity king, that's why I was like, this is going to be great for not only youth but also the child that's in a lot of us adults, you know
Absolutely.
um because for a long time, I when I was younger, we were told that therapy was for crazy people. Therapy was for the mentally ill. Like whenever we brought up or someone brought up therapy around our family, and this is, black family. I don't know if this is true in every family, but in my family, it was like, are you mental? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, why you need therapy? And then like I was shy away from it. I'm like, well, I would get nervous. I was like, okay, well, I guess, I only can go to therapy if something's like mentally insane with me or something, And I never sought therapy because of that. I never did. But then as I got older, I'm like, man, like I would like to sit down and talk to someone, after going through some life experiences. Um, and realizing, who I am, I'm like, I need help in that area. I need help in that area because, not like I said, not everything, majority of the things that we go through is not spiritual. The
Yeah.
majority of the things that we go through is because we haven't dealt with a lot of trauma, emotions, things, and we don't even know. Like for a long
Hmm.
time, I did not know. I did not know. I didn't know. Then walking around here bleeding on everybody, like walking around, being mean and not even knowing it. Nice, nasty, not even knowing it. Because remember I told you I didn't have any feelings. Like, what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
I just thought I'm thinking everybody had something wrong with everybody else.
that's
Ain't
a
nothing
very
wrong with
common.
me.
Yeah,
But
that's very common. I tell this to everybody when they kind of bring up the crazy aspect of counseling or therapy or whatever it is. It's this isn't because you're crazy. We all got like tune-ups and maintenance to do on ourselves. Um, some people went a little longer without it than others, and certain experiences and all that. But like they're real crazy. There's real crazy, and then there's people experiencing hardship, and then there's parents that had people that have had trauma within them that's being expressed. Um, so where counseling comes in, and I try to convey this to best of people is like, you're the captain, and I'm just the assistant, whoever, whatever. Somebody correct me with the boat stuff, but I'm like, land might be over there, you know, and
that's so
that's the
funny.
direction we're going. The goal is to help you become self-sufficient in dealing with the particular problems you're coming in, and that's kind of that's kind of it, you know. But I think that with some people, issues have been going on for so long, generationally, or even just within one's lifetime, that it's not seen as a problem per se. Or
Mm-mm.
if it is a problem, it's heavily minimized. So far to the point where it's like it's borderline normal, even if they know that deep down it's not. Um, or, just like you said, bleeding on everybody when you're just you're thinking you're fine and everybody else is kind of like, you know, this is how I am, this is what I do. Nobody's gonna change me or tell me different and this and that. And that hurts me because I'm like, no, we change consistently. And like you're not the same person you were at 5 years old, nor 10, nor
Mm.
15, nor 20. I would hope not. And then
No.
the other end of it is like, you know, the character qualities and philosophies of life and everything else. I don't, this is where I might get a little pushback from some people, but it's like it shouldn't be age bound. You know, it shouldn't be this thing where it's like by the time you reach 50, you'll have this resolved within yourself because a lot of people don't. So waiting on this age fallacy thing is kind of hitting people too. It's like go out, seek knowledge, how to apply it, and try to live it out the best you can. And you'll get closer to regulating your emotions better than somebody 20 years older, 10 years older, whatever that is, because you've done the work to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and not letting your life experiences define you. Like that, it's not that what happened happened and it's terrible. Although at this point, you know a bit better. And how do we go from there to adjust so that our day-to-day life is a little more peaceful, a little more happy, and not so tied up in um, what had happened. And that's where the goal, you know.
Oof, that was good. Stop being stuck on the past. Yeah, stop being stuck on the past. Because a lot of times, that like my apostle was talking about this, he was like, you have to deal with your thinking. What are you thinking about? And when he asks us, I'm like, Lord, like, what do I be thinking about, all day? Like, what do you think about? Like, what do you think about when you first wake up in the morning? Like, what is on your mind? What do you think about when you're faced with a decision to make or when you're in a conversation with someone? What are you thinking about? Like, what are you thinking about when you're, like having to deal with those hard conversations or, like, what are you thinking about? What is your thinking based on? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
and um, and so like doing the work, like stop complaining. Like that's all I was hearing. Like doing the work, stop complaining. Um, because I remember for a long time I was blaming my parents about a lot of stuff. I'm like, especially coming into Christ, like I was like like when things started to when I started to realize certain things, I was like, why this is why I'm so far behind, like, this is why because of them, like because of them. And some part, but at the same time, like what you were saying, like it's a certain time where you would just have to um try to get better for yourself because it's just this is your life.
Hmm.
Well, I'm saying your, but this is our life. Like this is my life, and I'm gonna speak about I'm speaking on like in my person, first person. This is my life, and at some point I have to realize that okay, you know what it is. You know you can get the help for that. Why aren't you not getting the help for that? Why are you afraid to get that help to be better? What are you afraid of? And so I tell myself, do it even if you're afraid. Like, get the help, even if you're afraid, and so I did, like, I'm gonna start seeing a therapist,
Hmm.
because I'm like, I'm not perfect, nor will I ever be, and there's some things that I have to deal with. There's some things, that I have to deal with, especially, if I do want to be married and a wife one day, like it's some things that I want to deal with, because I look
Yeah.
at that and I look at that. That's the thing. I look at that and I look at my future and I'm like, okay, if you were married or before you get married, will that person want you? Like, will that person want to deal with that you don't even want to deal with? And so I was like, ooh.
Hmm.
Listen, like, listen, I was like, ooh, okay, so I have to deal with it. I'm not that little girl anymore. Not that little
Hmm.
girl anymore. Although, like, I do have childlike faith. I am not that little girl that don't know how to speak up, that cries about everything, thinking that the tears are going to get me through. The tears release, but then I have to act. I have to do something, you know. And oh my God, like I'm like I was telling someone the other day, I said, I never wanted to really do this podcast. Like it was just something that um God just placed on my heart, and I was getting upset because people weren't like being real. Like I saw a lot of podcasts, about this and about that. But I'm like, where are the real people at? Where are the
Hmm.
real like I had so much to say, and I'm like, will I be able to be vulnerable enough and honest and not care what I never really did care what anybody say, but being respectful and will I be able to be that way while doing this podcast? And I was like, whew. I was like, yeah, it's time to go.
Yeah.
It's time to get better. And with this podcast, truthfully, like it healed me in a lot of ways. Um, and I'm so grateful. But also it showed me like the things that I needed to work on. Um, that I needed to work on personally, internally. Because like I was in the word more, like in the word of God more, praying
Yeah.
more, fasting more, and fasting, oof. Oh my God, like fasting, like spiritually and fasting for like help, meaning you remove all distractions around you, you maybe miss a plate or two, but you gain like the word of God was my food.
Yeah.
Like it was my food and it was feeding my soul. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know that I was like that. I didn't know that I actually did mess up on there, and so it brought a lot of humility and made me take a step back and look at my life. And I'm like, oh my God, God, I thank you, because if it had not been for you on my side, I don't know where I would be. And like this this is different. This is different. Like this is I'm like, I would have never done anything like this. Like I did it scared. I was scared, but I still did it, you know? I'm like, if God be for me, who can be against me? You know what I'm saying? Like I still did it. I still did it. That's so cool.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes. So let's see. So how can prayer, faith, and counseling and mentorship work together to support healing? Like we were talking about healing. Um, so how can all these different areas kind of like in the same like support someone's healing? And you can use me as a
Yeah,
reference or, general.
absolutely. You have to be discerning who you get your information from, who's informing you on this and that. Um, but outside of that, you know, you can't get it all in one place. You can't get it all from one person. I may be an exceptional counselor, in my personal opinion, although I'm not religiously that I'm not that guy. I can't speak too much to it. Um, I know a little bit, but I'm not the guy to learn from, you know.
Mm,
Um, let's say in terms of mentorship, I might not have the bandwidth to even allocate that. Um, so be discerning. But I think the other thing outside of discerning is knowing where you want to be in life. If you had, and for intakes, I do this with all the clients. If you had all your problems wished away, you know, what would those problems be? And in this case, if you had the perfect life, what would that be? And you kind of break down what that means for you. And with the breakdown, you find these different elements: financial stability, health,
yeah.
this and that. And so, what do you go for financial stability? What do you go for health? What do you go to for health? Who do you go to for that religious growth? Who do you go to for the mental health counseling? And so let your goals for life dictate where you're going to seek assistance for reaching your goal. And it's the best I can put it for that question.
Ooh, that was good. The last part you said, who do you go to for all these different areas? Like, when you break it down, like when you need financial help,
Mhm.
who do you go to for when you need spiritual help, who do you go for for your spiritual health, like emotions, who do you go for? And that's so good because I didn't realize that I actually was going to people for all these different things,
Yes.
you know? Like, yes, I go to
And
God, and
this
yes,
is where we take community. We take community
yeah.
and kind of branches, and you got to pick which one.
Yeah, because not
Community is important.
everybody fits everything.
Mhm.
Wow, that's good. That's good. And the thing about it, like when people talk about, well, I go to God for everything, but God tells you, okay, I'm gonna give you the wisdom and the knowledge to
Yeah.
then go to, hey, the financial help, hey, the counselor right there. I let y'all meet. So go to that person. Hey, you said you wanted to deal with your emotions, and we need to deal with that. So you need to go here. Like
Yeah.
the whole body works together, and that's powerful. That's powerful. Um, so how powerful is early emotional awareness in preventing struggles later in adulthood?
Oh, it immensely from like I have one good example, and I hope that anybody listening can translate this into other areas too. If emotional stability or dealing with your emotions meant yelling at somebody, fighting somebody when you were like 7.
Mhm.
How does that change your trajectory? Maybe more suspensions, more punishment at home. If the parents aren't dealing with it the best, then it's, leading on to you might calm down later on, but your some of the behaviors changed, but the mind didn't in some ways. And so we still hold on to certain mentalities. And later on, it's probably aggression, maybe prison, whatever. That's kind of like a little much, but that's what happens. And then it's like, dealing with your emotions when you were like 12 and you got your birthday money was going to buy stuff. And then, birthdays continue until you're about 16 and you're able to work. Um, and dealing with your emotions meant buying more and more stuff. And now you're, 25 and you're not handling funds the best because you can't stop buying materials. Um, or if you're younger and eating was a way to kind of regulate yourself,
Yeah.
you're munching, munching, munching. Things don't really change. And then you're getting older, you're spending too much money on food. Your health is more at risk than it used to be. Um, so when it comes to emotion regulation, it's, in my view, really about having the appropriate adaptive techniques, skills, philosophies you have in your mind to help you challenge, combat a lot of the negative things we're going to experience, have experienced, and so on and so forth. And so we aren't moving to the maladaptive stuff like overeating, like aggression towards others, like materialism, purchasing things you don't need to, drugs, alcohol, any kind of substance use. I find a lot of it is like, people just weren't taught the writing, the breathing, yoga. They weren't taught the
Oof. So good.
mental frames of mind that they needed before certain things hit them in life. And so their thinking is a little warped to a negative way of approaching something than a positive way. Um, so I think that really like emotion regulation and integration, um, getting closer towards having that stuff early in life does help and translate into avoiding a lot of the maladaptive approaches to regulating ourselves and therefore, preventing a lot of the hardship and struggle later on. Um, on the other hand, silver spoon in the mouth seem to be perfect life, rich parents, this and
Mm,
that. And then they they could be having a pretty good life, but when some adversity hits them, like a death or they had a fatal injury where they lost a limb or, they had some really strong adverse experience that led them to kind of be astray. Now, there are certain levels to intensity for negative experiences, right? But let's say the case where something bad does happen to somebody. They weren't given the tools, but up until like 25, they were just kind of like easy going. Life is easy peasy.
mm,
And the first kind of real wall they run into um, when shelter's taken away, it's like, uh, you know, then they're resorting to some things that they shouldn't have, abusing other people, um, stuff like that.
I am Amaya. I am Layla. Be the change, create the change to better the community. Be the change, create the change to better community. Be the change, create the change to better community. I am the Myths, UT, Beaufort, South Carolina. I am Tiny Miss, UT, Beaufort, South Carolina. See you next time. Bye, guys. Bye, bye. Thank you for our video. Thank you for our video. Bye. Like, subscribe. Our channel. Bye.
Subscribe to AA The Sisters only on YouTube. Don't forget to ring that bell. Wow, you're speaking to like most of America right now.
Yeah.
In both ways, like the silver spoon
Hmm.
and when we didn't have the silver spoon, because I was thinking about some stuff. I was like, Lord,
Yeah.
wow, because a lot of things that I saw when I was younger, I was like, I'm never gonna do that. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to hurt myself like that. Seeing certain things like people, you know, I we used to go to parties all the time. Like when I was
Hmm.
younger, meaning house parties. Like my
Yeah.
parents, we was going to house parties, and seeing people getting drunk and talking, like seeing people doing all types of things, and so as I got older, because I wasn't taught how to deal with my emotions, when certain things came up, you know, I still was like, kind of like, no, I don't want to do that.
Hmm.
I don't want to do that. I was afraid to do it, first of all, because I was like, no, because if my mama catch me doing this, it's
Yeah.
going to be the end of the world. Like she's going to send me back to my maker. So I am not doing that. But then it came a point where, like I told you, I started to get numb to the feeling, like to the emotions, like,
Hmm.
and it got to the point where I just like my family was just like on me, on me, on me, on me, on me. And about everything, every little mistake, every little thing that I did, it was like,
Yeah.
why you did that? You shouldn't have did that. I told you about that. And it was just like, and because I didn't know how to deal with my emotions,
Yeah.
I'm like sitting in the car or, sitting across from them and I'm like, I want to tell you so much things right now, but I can't. I can't even speak. I used to say I don't care, but I did care. I just thought that they wouldn't care, or they wouldn't care of how I felt. So I would bottle all that stuff in. And when opportunity came, when temptation came, and I had an opportunity to smoke marijuana, because marijuana's gonna make you feel good. And I'm like, I was kind of like, because I seen other people do it, and how they was like, how people would get in trouble with that and stuff. And I was like, I don't know about that. But then it came a point where I was like, you know what? Bump it. If it's gonna make me feel better, like with all these things going on inside of my head, like all
Hmm.
these voices in my head, I'm like, if it's gonna make me feel, not feel that, not hear that, then heck yeah, let's go. So for a
Yeah.
while, I was blowing down, but it got to a point where those voices were still like whenever like the high would leave,
Yeah.
them voices like louder. It was like, what? Like, not like, like I'm crazy like talking to voices and
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like the things I would think about, it'd be like other people like saying certain things and like especially like when I'm faced with, making a decision or something. And so then it came upon a time where I was smoking so much, I went into acute psychosis.
Yeah.
Oh, the worst time of my life. But also, I would say this, I seen certain things um while I was in that fantasy world, and like I can truly say that God had to literally pull me out of that. It got to the point where I didn't want to be here. I was literally having panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and not knowing what they were. I'm like, I've never felt this before, but not realizing that I was actually feeling that when I was younger. Like I would clench my jaw so hard, like in my sleep.
Hmm.
I would fidget all the time, like rub my feet, together and, in the bed or something, like not because I was cold, but because I was nervous. I was always fidgety, and I thought the marijuana, because it was kind of calming me down a little bit, but then it started to like, make me like fiend for it. Like I started to fiend for it. Like my body, it was like, I need it, I need it, I need it, So it became not once a day, but it became like an all day thing to the point where house stuff didn't get done. You know, I wasn't here. I was
Yeah.
here, but my mind. was completely somewhere else, and I can say that after I got out of that, I had like a whole mind transformation. You know what I'm saying? Like it was deep. And during that whole process, I mean, from beginning to still now, I was writing the whole time.
Yeah.
I was writing the whole time while in psychosis. And then also like the healing process after realizing that the marijuana was causing all of this. And then I was stubborn with it. Like I was very stubborn. Like I remember I went to the hospital, and I went to the hospital because it was something that happened. And
Yeah.
I was in acute psychosis at the time. This is how I knew I was in acute psychosis, because I went to the hospital. The ambulance took me to the hospital. And I'm gonna tell just a little bit about this because it's a very long story. But I was in the hospital, and I remember having panic attacks after panic attacks after panic attacks. Like I didn't want to talk to anybody. I thought white people were like, against me. Like I thought everybody was against me. Like I started seeing certain things. I'm like, mm-mm, like no, and it just came upon a time where I would hold my breath, like, Lord, I just don't want to be here no more. I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
It was that bad. Like, and then like at certain moments, I would think about my kids. I'm like, well, what about my babies? What about my kids? Like, oh my God, like, so I started remembering like, okay, I need to fight. I need to fight. Literally, I had to fight for my mind. Oh my God. I had to fight for my mind. And yeah, like coming out of that, it was hard. It was hard
Yeah.
because my body like still was feeding from the marijuana, but I had to fast from it. You know, it was very hard. And now I can say today that I can't even be tempted by that anymore. Like I remember at one point I would smell it, and be like, wow, like that smells so good. But now, like it's like whenever I'm around it, it's irritating me, like, mm-mm, like, mm-mm. Or like if I'm walking past someone and I can smell it because I've smoked it before, so I can
Yeah.
smell it, and it's like, ugh, like it just makes me want to gag, But that goes to show that, wow, I changed a lot, like it's a lot of things that changed, and
Yeah.
I say it's nothing but Jesus, because that's like, that's my faith. Like I believe that the Holy Spirit he came. Like I've seen some things. I've seen some things, and I'm a witness to some things. And I'm like, Lord, that was you. Like that had to be you. Because only good, God is good. Like the enemy, he wouldn't have tried to pull me out of that. I was in this fantasy world that I wanted to stay in. I remember passing out, and I wanted to stay in that. I was like, I want to stay here. Man. But the way,
Yeah. Yeah.
the way God came for me, and I gasped up for air, and I was like, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, did I die? Like what happened? Like there's something. What happened to me?
Hmm.
And oh man, like, man, that's why I'm writing this book too, because it's so many things that I'm grateful for. It's called Dear God, Thank You. And because it's so many things that God has done for not only me, but I see the people around me, even my family, like it's so many things, like, you know, I look at certain people, I'm like, wow, God did that. Like it's just so many things that God has done for me. And then I'm so grateful, because when I was writing those letters, I kept writing, Dear God, thank you. Dear God, da 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 da, da. Dear God, dear God, dear God, dear God, dear God. Like I'm literally like to the point where my hands started hurting. I had to literally type it on my tablet, or I had to talk to my phone once I couldn't even speak. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know it's like pretty
Yeah,
long. But it was a certain point where I had TMJ. Like I was clenching my jaw so hard. I thought I had an ear infection. Like all this was like sore. I couldn't even talk. I couldn't talk. I was miserable. You know how hard it is for somebody that loves to worship God, Jesus, and you can't even sing, you can't even talk. So
yeah,
just imagine you going through all that mental stuff and you can't even say nothing, and I didn't even get therapy for that. I get therapy for my speech. It was a long time where I had to learn how to speak again. And you know how I did that? Not only prayer and fasting and going and reading and reading the word of God, but
yeah.
also I was reading books. Like I started reading books again. I was like, I want to read a book. I started reading. That's how, and I started talking as I was reading, even though I was getting frustrated because like I was looking at it, I'm like, okay, I know what this word is saying, but I can't articulate it. And people are like, you speak very well. And I'm like, if you only knew my story. And so there was a certain time I couldn't even speak. Like, and sometimes I still have that pain in my jaw, but I just take some ibuprofen or something, especially during the winter time, like it hurts a lot. But um I just take some ibuprofen, or some Tylenol. I'm sorry, I got off track.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah,
It's powerful to share that because that shows your, the strides you took and the vulnerability to
mhm,
express that. That takes power too, and it's an underrated power because a lot of people um, have trouble with that, understandably so. And the ability to be vulnerable is one of the strongest things you can have in your toolkit for overcoming issues. Um, it's sometimes there's really rough stuff, and then there's the stuff that you would tell nobody. Um, and the closer you get to the tell nobody stuff, not saying that you should say whatever, but it's just
yeah,
it gives the more you do it, it gives you a bit of power back, and it gives you a bit more understanding to what something is, nuances, elements, and it also, you know, I don't want to say numbing, I want to say resilience
mhm.
to the experience you had. Um, and I think that's powerful. So you did great.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, because girl Keisha will be over here. Sometimes I'll be over here like trying to be perfect because of that. You know, I used to try to be perfect because of going through that, not realizing it, and I would be so hard on myself. But recently, I'm like, let it go, let it go. You're doing okay. Like, I actually have to sit and look at my day, look at my life, and like you're doing okay. Like I would send messages through different people. And I remember I was in the store, I was in the grocery store. I was sick this day too. I was sick. I think this was Sunday. Yeah, this was Sunday. This past Sunday. I was feeling bad, but I had to go to the grocery store and get some stuff to meal prep for this week
Yeah.
here. And I was listening to my apostle's message that Sunday on my headphones, and as I'm walking around, this older white guy, he walked past me. Now at this moment, I wasn't smiling. I wasn't smiling because I was just wasn't smiling. But I'm always smiling. That's the thing. But he don't know that about me. He does not know that about me. And when he walked past me, he turned back around. He said, "Keep smiling." And it made me laugh. I was like, God, you're so
Mm,
funny. Like, it just made me laugh because I knew that he didn't know why he said that because he even was like, kind of like, well, I don't know why I said that, but I knew it was for me. It was for me because I was like, dang, I haven't really smiled in a while. Like I have joy, but where my joy at? Why am I so
Yeah.
serious about stuff? Like, like where's the joy? You
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
So that, and then my sister in Christ, she texted me this past Tuesday or Wednesday, and she was like, keep smiling. And I say you're the second person that told me that. So I say it has to be God because like it's the same person that told me that. Um, so I don't just keep smiling, and keep keeping on because I'm not alone. Like I'm not alone. God is pruning me, He's molding me, He's shaping me. And I have to remember that just like a seed takes time for the root to grow out of it, and that root takes time to burst out of the ground, out of the dirt, and into a stem. And that stem takes time to grow leaves. And that leaf, and then it grows into like this beautiful flower. I also have a process. We also have a process. It's not gonna be tomorrow, the next day. It may take a while. Great things take a while, and so I had to stop looking at her process and his process and their process. I had to focus on what God needed me to be doing. And that's this podcast, and not only this, but some other things I'm working on too. But this right here, you know, be able to speak when I couldn't speak.
Yeah.
And like you said, speaking from that vulnerable place, it will free so many people. And having people like you on, and others who came and shared, you know, what you don't know is that this, or you may know, but this will help so many people, women, children, boys, girls, everyone. I see everybody, being helped. I don't just see women, even though this is a woman, a faith-based podcast. But I mean, if this is shining a light on that woman's gonna shine a light on someone else. And
Yeah.
then that someone else gonna shine a light on that little kid that probably was going through some things, and that child was shining a light on his friend, or like
Mhm.
like it will be a ripple effect. So yeah. Hey everyone, it's your girl Keish. I just wanted to take a moment and introduce you to Arabelle, aka Ari. She's not just a life insurance agent, she's someone who personally took care of me and my family. I trust her completely. She specializes in protecting families, whether it's burial costs, future planning, or just peace of mind. She's also a budget expert. If you want to learn more, text free quote to 646 954 8173 or visit her Instagram page and DM her at Coach Boss Babe. She'll be more than happy to help you just like she helped me. um so what does healthy growth look like over time? I think since we were talking about.
Healthy growth over time looks like small changes, just enough
Mhm.
every month. It's not this.
That's me. I was like,
Yeah.
what
It's
the
not
big.
that.
Yeah.
That's what healthy growth looks over time.
Yeah.
Um, so when you were talking about how you wanted to be perfect, you did kind of the 180 approach. So when people have adversity and they come out from it, they either repeat what they had seen, had experienced, they do a 180 where it's like if I was dealing with anger when I was younger, angry no more, not at all, never again. One, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Two, it creates more problems. Okay, let's say you're not angry. Now you're anxious about being angry. Now you're probably depressed because it's like you can't allow yourself to feel anger. Um, So we have to be careful about
Yeah.
those two approaches. And then there's the third approach where you move from a more integrated approach to seek help, understand that you're not perfect, but you're trying and you are making those strides.
Mm.
You're understanding. So anybody watching what I'm talking about, repeat 180, the third approach, she was talking about how, you know, I don't have to be perfect anymore. Like that little segment, that timepiece. I don't know if you want to break it up. Rewind to that. You'll see what I'm talking about because that's exactly what it is. That integration approach where, you come to an understanding of the past and how do we move forward from here and heal in a productive way that's not going to be too much on us to where it's like it's causing us problems again. Um, and we're not like, okay, what happened was bad, but I'm gonna keep doing what I was doing before and repeating what I saw and heard and used to do or things like that.
That was good. That was good. Yeah, that was good. Okay. Um, that was really good because, like I said, like okay, I did get therapy like twice. All
Hmm.
right. The first time I got therapy, it was through BetterHelp or something like that, and I was paying for it. But it's just the therapist, not saying they're a bad therapist, but I didn't feel that they were my therapist. You know what I'm saying? Like right for me.
Hmm.
Um, the second time I went, I kept being stubborn. Like I didn't want to share the things that I should have shared. Like I didn't want to let that guard down, and open up, and share.
Yeah.
Even if I was feeling like anxiety or worry, like that didn't mean to like shut down, but just even if my words were going here, there, and everywhere, like
Yeah.
like just talk. And that's what I'm learning to just talk and just
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Um, so what encouragement would you offer someone walking through a personal fire right now? And what I mean by the fire, um, I go take it a little biblical right quick. Um, I don't know if you know the story of the three Hebrew boys. Um, they were thrown into the fire, I think, by Nebuchadnezzar, but they didn't get burned, they didn't smell like it, but Jesus was in the fire with them. And they were like, who's that fourth person in the fire? It was like, we only threw three of them in there. And they didn't know that that was Jesus. And so when they came out of the fire, they didn't even get burned. But the soldiers who were like right outside of the fire, they got burned and they got killed. But the three Hebrew boys came out. And then when I was thinking about that, I was meditating on that scripture. I thought about our personal fires that we go through. Like, you know, we're in it, God's refining us. But like when we're in it, it can be like feeling like hell, you know what I'm saying? like what's going on? you know, um, kind of like what I was telling you about the acute psychosis. I was like, what is going on? You know, and I felt like a 5 year old. I felt like a 5 year old when I went through that. Literally, I couldn't
Yeah.
make sense of things at all.
My advice is you need to be a little bit of spirit, free spirit, and you need to use my toolkit for regulating yourself. Know where you are weak so that you don't kind of. I love candy. Candy's my thing.
Okay.
I know, and then we have nerves all along our body when we eat, it's a pleasure signal.
Mm-hmm.
And when you combine sweets and with that knowledge, you're probably gonna eat a lot of damn candy when you're stressed out, or when you're bothered by something. Knowing what your vices are, just try best to stay away. You already have a problem. Let's not add on to it. Let's find alternatives, which, breathing, stretching, um, meditation if you're into it, like, period muscle relaxation, whatever you could find out there for yourself, whatever you've learned, that thing, like martial arts for some people, for me even, um, apply that before you get to a certain space when you are in that space. And what I mean by like free spirited, I'm talking about that like that Taoist mentality. Um, it's bad, but you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you gotta have that kind of like attitude because what happened happened. What could happen, but we don't know the future. We have no control over the future as much as we try. We, I mean, the past is what happened, so be it. And in the moment, while you're in the fire, I mean, it's still going to burn, you're still going to feel it. But in here, how can you best get that, that sort of attitude towards the adversity? Because it's already bad, but what are you going to make of it while you're in it? You know, and then some people are, I can't control it. Some people they literally can't. And then some people it's like, well, you haven't learned to, or you just don't want to try. Like like I was I was bit by a dog. Middle finger here.
Oh,
That was
sorry.
whole story aside, right? Um, went to the ER and I was like, cracking jokes. I was in pain. I was like, still breathing to kind of keep myself leveled off. But I was like, well, it happens.
Yeah.
Like, I'm all right. The day was gone. I handled it after that. Um, but it might be like, okay, easy for you to say, but it's just how do you get there? Try your best, and I hope I gave as much information as I could to kind of have that within us. But
Yeah.
you choose how you react to something. You don't have control over whether X, Y, and Z happens. I mean, think about it like this: how many times have you stubbed your toe on something? You
I lit.
scratched yourself on
Yeah.
something. You have control of your body, complete and total control of your body. But it was too dark. You were thinking, ruminating about something in your mind, and you weren't so focused as to where the position of your body is. So you hit yourself on something. You scratch yourself on something. That's how little control we have if we're not preparing ourselves, being mindful, present in the moment, staying, focused. And it's just like we have a lot less control than we think we do. Um, but with what we know and what we can apply, get to the point where you're just like, it's bad, but eh, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And that's not to say have this like carefree, don't care, the problem will solve itself attitude. Um, it's just it's bad, but I'll be all right. Some things are harder to deal with than others, granted, but how can you get that to the point where if there's like the eighth hardest thing you could deal with in life, can you get that attitude there? You know, um, some people number one might be death. Some people number two might be death of their children or death of their children. Um, Unfavorable experiences that happen to a lot of women with, physically, mentally, emotionally, um, with abuse and so on and so forth. And then there's like financial concerns, you know. my whole thing is the fire's going to be the fire. How can you just be like, I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to solve this. I don't know how right now, or it just sucks at the moment, but I'm going to go get some ice cream, you know? Like, and it sounds so
Yeah.
facetious. It sounds like impossible to some folks, even when they hear it. But it's like, the next time you just get worked up about something, just kind of think about, yeah,
Yeah.
and try, try.
Turn your pain into gain. Yeah.
Mhm.
Turn it into gain. Do something good. Like I love to paint, and I haven't painted in a while. But I paint or do something creative, to get my mind off of things.
Yeah.
Sing. Oh my God, I sing for days. Um, just go out, like go exercise too. Oh
Exercise.
man,
Yeah.
I'll be in the gym. Like if you, I know some people looking at me and you could tell that, they can feel the heated joy coming from me because I'm good. Like I'm good, but
hmm
like it's like that, like working out, it's like, yeah, like, man, my whole mindset is like different when I'm working out. Like I have this it's a what's it called? It's very focused when
Yeah.
I'm working out. Like, oh my God, it's so good. That's why I love going to work out. Like I work out five days a week. So, which is something I couldn't say years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
But getting there, some people are like, oh my God, like how did you do it? I'm like, girl, listen, I just started. Like I just started. And when it got hard, when I didn't have the motivation, I just kept going. I kept going because I said, well, I have a goal that I want to get to, and I want to be healthier, not only internally, but physically as well, and I don't want to feel the pains that I used to feel before. So I'm going to turn that pain into a gain. I'm going to do better with my eating habits and, physical, every well-rounded. I want to be well-rounded, and
Absolutely.
so, yeah. Wow, this was so good. I feel like I was in a therapy session.
I have that effect on people.
Yeah, yeah. Look at
Yeah.
you. Okay. So, family, sis, bro, listen, as we close, I want to gently bring us back into the cool of the day, y'all. That sacred pause where God meets us in honesty, where we don't have to perform, explain, or rush healing. Just be present. And today it reminded me that growth takes time, that emotions are not the enemy, that faith doesn't mean avoiding the fire. It means trusting that Jesus is already there with us, shaping us, strengthening us, and reminding us who we are. So, before we go, listen, Dorian, thank you so much. Like, for real, thank you so much for joining in and giving your wisdom on things that will shed light in others people's darkness. Um, yeah, this is season 4 of the Cool of the Day. He's in the fire with us, and until next time, y'all, keep showing up, keep growing, and remember you are never walking alone. And before we go, Dorian, can you tell everyone where they can follow you, your website, some things that you have maybe going on that they would be interested in?
Absolutely. I oh well, let me start with you. Follow me at dswjr.com. dswjr.com. It's my website. You'll be able to find my social media, or my social media is basically my name. I wanted to make it pretty easy for people to find me. Well, you'll be able to do that. What I have going on, I got March. In March, I have a series. So another series, like I did in October. It's geared more towards like couples and relationship conflicts. And I'll be touching on like the big 5 fights. I'm touching on, more so hitting on like, different elements. First session is on control of power dynamics. The second session is geared towards communication and team working. Third session touching a lot more on, because oh, not too much, but the you know people don't like people different from them as much as they think they're accepting. There's stuff about other people, not even just skin, just like I don't like the way this person puts the dishes in there. You know, something as light as that, but let's blow it up a bit. And sometimes we don't tolerate what we don't like in other people as much as we can. And that's where divide happens sometimes too. So the third session is focused on that. The last section is geared towards grief. So I'll be doing that again. Um, like Thursdays, 5:30. I'll be doing that. Um, and animation. So just check out what I got going on. I'm not, I don't have really a book idea at the moment, but I had one in November. So Poetic Epiphany, How to Find Peace. And I think I'm most proudest of that too. I think that one came out phenomenal.
Yeah. I got that
And
book. I got that one.
yep, I hope you're loving it.
I got that
Um,
one.
and yeah, that's about it.
Yes. Oh, don't forget you got like 5, 6, 7, 8 books, right?
Oh, well, you can find that all on the website. That'll
Yeah.
be um, Creativity King, 114 Realities, Conversations You Need, Wisdom 45 Advice, uh, Don't Be a Cactus, How to Make Connections and Resolve Conflicts, which the series in March will be based around,
Yeah.
and Poetic Epiphany. I'm thinking about another one. Uh, I've been sitting on the idea for a little while. I just haven't my head's been empty and I've been in other places, so it's kind of
Yeah.
that's me at the moment.
That's good. That's good. You don't mind if I pray us out?
Do what you gotta do.
All right.
I'm all for it.
All right. So, sis, bro, listen, we got to pray out. So, here we go. Listen, God, thank you for meeting us right where we are. Thank you for being near in the fire, steady in the process, gentle in our becoming. Heal what started early, restore what feels broken, and teach us how to tend to our hearts with wisdom, courage, and grace. And help us walk as light, ground and authentic, and anchored in you. In Jesus' name, amen. So listen, y'all, it's your girl Keish. You already know what it is, host of the Cooler Today. And you can find everything about me at my link tree / it's your girl Keish. And I'll see y'all next time. I love you. Peace.